Hey everyone, welcome to the Help Me Rhonda Show. Wow, this week I have an unbelievable guest. Today I have Robert Ian Bonnick. He's the author of Soul Survivor, How an Abandoned Child Went from Nothing to Everything. And he's going to reveal his story today. Robert!
Hey girl,
What's
how you doing?
up?
How you doing?
So good to have you here.
So good to be here.
I absolutely
good to
adore
be
you,
here.
by the way.
Right back.
I'm real excited to have you, especially to really tap deeply about your book.
Yeah.
Because you've gone through so many things, and we were just having a chat about your background. You're Jamaican, although you were born and raised in London.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Absolutely right.
How
yeah.
does a Jamaican boy find himself to London? How did your family get to London?
Yeah, so back in the 60s, there was a bit of propaganda put towards Jamaica and West Indies, which was, come to London, the streets are paved with gold, make a whole lot of money, and go home and live like a king or a queen, as the case may be. And once a lot of Jamaicans got to London, the streets weren't paved with gold, but they ended up working on the streets.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So initially that's what happened, and my parents got caught in that trap. But also opportunities came later.
Yeah. So tell us about that. You actually grew up and you were abandoned as a child, right? And I was looking into your book just recently, and there was a lot of things that kept coming up about, your past and how you've overcome it. Like most would see you're a Jamaican guy being raised, a kid that's abandoned, and you would really look at not having a whole lot of opportunities. And I would not normally see many kids in your situation be sitting here telling about being a model in Milan and working with the stars, which we're going to get to.
Yeah.
What happened for you? How did you go from being completely abandoned to where you are right now?
Great question. Ooh, in a nutshell, and then we can go deeper if you need to.
Yeah.
So the nutshell is that, there was luck, no doubt about it. The children's home that we were in, me and my sister, there were a lot of good things about it. There were some terrible things, but a lot of good things about it as well. But I always felt something like a guiding hand around me.
So you were, what year were you? How many kids, how many siblings you have?
Yeah, so my sister and I
Okay.
were put into that children's home together.
Okay.
Then I have a younger brother who was brought up by a Welsh professor in their family, so he was fostered. He came a little bit later. And then I have another two half brothers and sisters and another half brother who are one half brother's older. The two youngers, twins actually, are
So you
younger,
got a whole
and they were
slew
fostered off.
of kids in your family, and every one of you were left at a doorstep?
Pretty much. I mean, when the three were fostered, one was raised and then put into foster care. My sister and I were the only ones who brought up in the kids' home. So then, to get back to your question, like the first thing was acceptance. It was accepting where I was. I never liked who I was. Even though the children's home was pejoratively black, school, I was the only black kid at school for 14 years.
So what age were you then when your mother left you guys at
6 months. I was 6 months old.
Okay, wait a minute. So you were a baby.
Yeah, baby.
You were raised in foster care.
Yeah,
and then
in children's home.
In a children's home.
Yeah.
And at what age were you adopted?
So we never were adopted.
Okay.
The younger siblings were because the ethos changed at the time. But my sister and I, we ended up staying, so we had one St. Bernardo's, which I think was for 2 years. And then we went to another one, we stayed for like 16 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Whoa, so you were in a foster home or a children's home for 16 years of your life.
Correct. Yeah.
How does a kid go living in that type of a home? I can't imagine there's a lot of over positivity or possibility in your mindset. How do you go from being in a space like that to coming out and actually living in a space of positivity like you are? I mean, you are such a beaming light. We know you here in Bali, as Robert, like the big smiling guy that runs life in Bali, that makes everyone feel amazing, right? You're beaming full of smiles. I would not expect that from you.
Yeah.
Knowing that your background, you were abandoned at 6 months, you were left on a doorstep, and then you were raised through 16 years of your life in a kid's home.
Yeah.
Talk about that gap. That's a big gap right there.
It's a big gap. So I was always the youngest one growing up, and people would come in, kids would come in, and then they would leave at 18 and out. But me and my sister were the youngest ones who stayed literally from 6, all the way up. So I must have seen 30, 40, 50, 60 kids come through.
Wow.
Now, the interesting part is that each of those kids were like a mentor for me because I was shy. I was the youngest. I was bullied from time to time, but I was really, at home I lived the life of an introvert. So I would be the guy who would just absorb, and I could look at what was happening in people's lives and see where their decisions took them, right? And then also people used to feel sorry for me, right? So they'd be coming to me saying, Rob, don't be like me, be better than me. And they knew that I looked up to them. And they knew that the life that they were living was leaving them on an inevitable course, which would lead them into jail. Or one guy got shot in the head, for example. You know, one guy, you know, great success story, was the first black head chef of like a major London hotel, the Dorchester. You know, so there were success stories, right? But a lot of sad stories. But again, you know, like they ingrained in me, like, Rob, don't be like me. I know you look up to me, but don't be like me.
So these were all kids that were left in this child's home, and you're learning from them.
I'm learning from them.
No parents.
No. So
maybe the guiders, the teachers. Like,
well, we had members of staff which were like your surrogate parents. So, you know, different members of staff brought different things.
Yeah, right.
You know, so the woman who's in charge of the home, Gail, beautiful lady, Christian, she brought a Christian philosophy to it all. Members of staff, one woman called Eugene Devonish, she was a West Indian, so she brought a West Indian flavor. Jeff Britton, another West Indian, brought a West Indian flavor. Monty Edwards, who I'm still in touch with now, brought a West Indian flavor, and he was very pro-black. But not in a sense of black is everything and white is terrible, no. But just acknowledge your own power and embrace your own power as a black man living on the planet.
Which is powerful, especially as a young boy, not having parents, growing up in London. I mean, it's a multicultural in London, but I mean, you could feel like you're much less than.
Yeah.
You mentioned Gail.
Yeah.
Gail, I was going through the book, and you mentioned Gail, so she came as a support system, but there was something that Gail did with you and for you that probably would have been destructive as a young person. It was the wetting the bed scene. Right?
Yeah.
And how you use that as a lesson to really come through. Talk about that, because I think it's a big thing, especially like my audience, like, you know, we talk about sexy brands, right? Anyone that's a sexy brand that just comes through life and their life shines through them, and that's their brand and what they give to the world. But there's always these things that have happened to us in moments that we realize that happened and that made me think differently or made me change the way I am today. Talk about that scene with when Gail kind of took over, and you said it's the wetting the bed scene, but it was like one of the horrible times in your life, but then you realize what it did for you.
Yeah, so there were many situations like that, and Gail wasn't the only one. There are many members of staff, you know, who taught us different things. And I mean, you know, which I'll get into in a second, but as you mentioned before, you know, it's at the time when it feels like shit, and it feels like the worst experience or worst time ever. Later on, when you reflect back or when you reflect upon it, you realize what you're learning.
Yeah.
And wetting the bed, you know, I used to do it a bit, and I mean, because I was scared of the dark, so I didn't really want to get out of bed and walk through this jungle, which was a boys' room, but darkness and the wardrobes would take on.
Scary, no parents,
would take on, like,
right?
Yeah, would take on shapes and figures, and I'll have ghosts in my mind. It's like I was too scared.
Yeah.
So I used to wet the bed because I was too afraid to go to the toilet. But what that then meant is that the next day is like a walk of shame, right? So you have to take your own sheets and you're walking them through, and everyone knows where you wet the bed, and you take them downstairs, you put them in the laundry, and of course you have to go and shower yourself, and then we used to have like a cold shower and stuff like that, and it was harsh, right? It felt harsh, but again, you know, like what it taught me as well, you know, was just the power of taking responsibility, you know, like the power of owning your own thoughts. And the power of, like, you know, realizing that you have the opportunity to reframe how things first appear, but you can change that look to something that's more positive for you and lead you in a much stronger, more powerful, more positive direction, which you take ownership for.
And I love that, and that's why I brought it up, because I think so many people look at others like, oh, they're doing so well, but then we start tapping into your background and you start seeing that all of us have gone through scenes like this. Like, all of us have had times in our life where someone's made fun of us, but we had to overcome it, right? I mean, you being a kid growing up in a children's home, you know, and going through all these scenarios, you're still doing normal things that kids are doing even today. You just took it and became and made it more on a more positive side.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And was it because of the positive influences, the people around you, or was it just because you think that you had a better mindset?
People around me, for sure.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, like, you know, seeing people die in front of you, seeing, seeing like kids. You know, one girl, Jackie Reardon, whew, she had such a tough life, and you know, she came into the children's home, you know, and was really like a somber, down kind of person. You know, didn't really smile that often. Not to say she was never happy, but that smiling wasn't really part of her MO. You know.
Yeah.
And then you just felt that she was getting on. You know, that she was moving on with her life. That she was becoming more confident. You know, she's beautiful, right? And recognizing that beauty within herself. You know, and you can see that she was growing and really developing and becoming someone. To then find out, you know, that her boyfriend, she stayed overnight, back of his bike, pulling out the driveway, car hits him, she dies instantly.
Wow.
He paralyzed from the neck down, the rest of his life, done. It just didn't feel fair.
Yeah.
You know, it really didn't feel fair. And, you know, like, something else happened to us, this racist attack about walking down the street with one other guy, nigger, go back to your own country. These guys came, won't go into too much detail, but it was physical, right? And it ended up, you know, like me running away and a friend of mine getting beaten up for me. He stuck up for me. I ran thinking that he was there, but he wasn't there. I turned back and there's 12 guys kicking him. And he's on the floor and going, and I could hear and see every single, and I could feel every single kick that was going. And then there in that position of wondering, if I go back there now, I'm dead. If I stay here now, I have to live with me being a coward for the rest of my life, is how it felt at the time.
Wow, yeah.
You know? And then thinking that I look over here and I see another guy coming out of the pub thinking, all right, this is going to be the guy who stops it. Like cowboys and Indians. The cowboys were the good guys, the Indians were the bad guys. Actually, not really. So what happened in that moment when this guy pulled the guys off and I thought, it's over, and then started to kick him, something just, a switch just flicked in me. And it just kind of made me realize that life doesn't necessarily happen in a way that's fair.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And what you think should and could happen doesn't always happen. You know, so in a certain way, like, you have the power of your destiny in your own hands. You know, and it doesn't show up like a Mills and Boons novel where everyone lives happily ever after and sails off into the sunset. You know, so you've got to be the change that you want to see. You know, and out of that experience, you know, it took me on a different way. Like, you know, I had all the feelings and emotions of wanting to get revenge. I had the visions in my head of beating the guys to a pulp and getting and feeling, you know,
I got my way. I got him back.
I got him back,
Yeah.
right? But then something else changed. And what that was this understanding and realization that it's actually education. You know, like, these guys came to me because of ignorance. They didn't know what they were doing. 12 years of age, in a history class, kid puts his hand up, 100 Years' War we're studying at the time. Miss, yes. 100 Years' War, yes. It can't be the same people fighting, right? That flew over my head. 4 years later, when that racist attack happened, I got it. And that is simply that, you know, it's what we pass on to the next generation and what we teach them that guides and creates who they become. So the guys who were the racists in a race attack, they didn't know any better. Maybe their background was that mum and dad, for their own reasons, didn't like black people because whatever, they took their job, or they're better at sport, or they were jealous, or whatever. Something happened to them that caused them to respond, well, actually react in a way that then they pass that on to their kids, and their kids through that, you know, the theta brainwave state, pick it up. Then the RAS kicks in, they take it on board, and that's who they become.
Yeah.
And that's who I met that day. So then what I realized was, you know what? I now have compassion for you because you don't even know what you're doing. And when I come from that perspective, then it gives the power back to me to make a choice on my response.
I love this. And you actually made a statement in your book that said the truth will set you free.
Yeah.
And that's really what the truth is. And I think that, at what age were you at this time?
14, 15, 16 when that happened. Yeah,
So the truth
15,
set you
16.
free. I mean, how many of us are living in this world where we don't see it? We don't realize we're still holding all the burdens on.
Yeah.
You did this to me, the blame, the victim, the parents. Like, when the truth really sets you free, and the truth is, life isn't sunshine and roses.
That's right.
Those things happen to us so you can decide how you're going to react in life.
Spot on. Yeah.
Big. So you go from this, you know, getting beat up, getting called horrible things, growing up in this children's home, to now being in Milan as a top model, you know, with some of the top people in the world.
Yeah. How did that happen?
Jump there.
Yeah. Done. So at home I was an introvert. At school I happened to be good at sport. And it was a way for me to exorcise the anger and pain that I was going through at the time.
Yeah.
So because I was good at sport, people at school then started to treat me different. Teachers started to treat me differently. And this pedestal of putting up on this pedestal started to happen. And then being on the pedestal is really difficult to be an introvert and all of this. When you're being up on a pedestal. So then acting, it's like I became another person.
Oh, you had an escape.
I had that escape.
You literally escaped from who you were to who you wanted to be, or who you saw yourself as.
Exactly.
Wow.
So introvert became an extrovert. And it was switch. When I get home, I'd go back to introvert. At school, extrovert. But then what I found is that in that persona of being an extrovert, interesting things began to happen. Opportunities began to come to me that never came my way before. I ended up being sponsored by Adidas, one of the first kids in care to be sponsored by a major body for sport. You know, I began to win things. You know, then because I won stuff, then I'll get to go on skiing trips. Because I went to go on skiing trips, and I'd enter into a different echelon of society. And then because I would enter into a different echelon of society, I began to speak differently. As I began to speak differently, then other doors began to open to me. So all along the way, inner confidence was beginning to build up. I never still at this point thought that I was anything to look at personally. I still was uncomfortable with the way I looked, because I grew up on a Caucasian view of what beauty is, and my lips are not Caucasian, my nose is not Caucasian, and I had a hard time adjusting to these things.
So your identity of how you saw yourself to how others were seeing you wasn't aligned.
Completely different.
Like completely
and totally
disalignment.
different.
And most people would not continue to pursue that. They could dive right back into introversion.
I mean, another time, a guy called Daniel Kahn, beautiful looking guy, God's gift to women, handsome, tall, great body, knew how to speak, was great at sport, you know, was a rich guy, his family were well off at the time, was my best friend. Somehow he was my best friend. And he was older than me. And we'd always go out, and this guy would always have women dropping off of him. And me, I'd be like, I felt like the ugly duckling in the corner, right? And then one time, he came to my house, and we went out for something, and he goes, oh, you know, there's a girl who was asking about you. She said, where's that handsome guy you're with? And I was, you know, he went over my head, and he's like, Rob, she was talking about you. I was like, what? You know, and something, so we're talking now, an exterior comment that someone else made, someone I looked up to at the time, which said, this other girl said, where's the handsome guy that you were, and they're referring to you. That was the first time that anyone had called me anything like that. And that thing, combined with the extrovert, just a door opened somewhere, right? And the modeling thing and all of that came through that door, because what it really truly was the cry for help. That's what it actually was. It was a cry for me to try to reach on the outside, to get that acknowledgement on the outside by becoming a model that would then give me the inner acknowledgement that, hey, I didn't look so bad.
Right.
I looked all right. And that's what was driving that whole modeling thing, right? Which interestingly enough, and I quickly skip forward.
Yeah.
So yeah, I worked with the supermodels, Naomi Campbell, Evangelista, Eva Herzegovina, and so I had some great opportunities, some great things. But the funny thing was, the irony was, in the height of success as a model, working with these really big brands and working with these amazing women and amazing looking guys, I still was the most, you know, like
insecure.
I felt so insecure and completely vulnerable in a negative way, to the point that I just kind of realized, you know, I went out looking for this acknowledgement, which I got because I was in magazines, I got all that stuff, I was on billboards, I got all that stuff, but it didn't change the inside of me at all.
And that's what I wanted to tap into. Because we see this often, right? You know my daughter Hanalei, right? She's in fashion.
Yeah.
And is always that fine line between, as she grew up, people would say, oh, she's so beautiful, she's so beautiful. And we started to realize like that's almost more of a negative reinforcement than a positive one, because if they don't believe it, right? Instead of saying she's more beautiful on the inside than she is on the outside and reassuring that. But I see this often, right? We see this in stars and a lot of in the modeling, the acting world, where they're just being someone, and because the amount of suicide that has taken place in Hollywood because of that just one reason. How did you go from being at the top of the world and not believing it to then, like, what did you do? Like, did you quit? Did you move forward? Like, where did you go from there? Because that's almost like a deeper, darker hole than when you were dropped off at the front door at the kids' home.
Big time. Interesting. So the book you mentioned before is divided into thirds. The first third is about life growing up in the orphanage and the kids around me and the influences and all the rest of that. The second third of the book is about, when I played basketball for England, I never thought I would get there, but I really wanted to. That is what a glass ceiling was for me. I didn't believe I could get there. No one thought I could get there, but I just really applied myself. I visualized, I focused, I did all this stuff and tripped upon a mechanism of getting stuff, of manifesting stuff that I had no idea what I was doing at the time, but I did. And when I did it and I got there, it opened up another doorway. And that doorway was like, well, if I can do this, and I didn't believe it was possible, what else can I do?
Yeah.
The modeling came after that, and I did it because of that.
Yeah.
The inner reason was as I just mentioned, but the exterior was based upon, if I can do this, I can do anything.
Yeah. Right, so you were just driving.
So I was
still
driving.
Inside, you still weren't believing it.
Yes.
Because we do this, type A's, we can do this, right?
That's right. But I was still flipping between introvert and extrovert.
Twisting inside, your conflict inside.
It's conflict inside.
Yeah.
So in my highest moments, I was out there
Everyone's thinking, look at you, he's on
smashing it. And I'm there and I'm doing it. And then on the lowest points, I'm back to the introvert again, going, well, nothing's really changing here, Rob. It's actually getting worse, not getting better. But I would keep pushing on the outside. So during that mid part of the book, that second third, modeling came up. Now, modeling, I had this other experience that happened, which this photographer who got me into the top agency, Frank, the guy shot that actually, interesting enough, far out, the guy who shot that. Yeah. So the experience was that he actually wanted more from me than what I could give. We were having another photo shoot at the time, some months later on, and then as a model, you're used to being naked, you're used to having that stuff around. In photo shoots, you're used to people touching your private parts, pushing them aside because it's in the shot, you don't want it to be in there, it's okay. But this guy, he dwelled on it for a bit too long. And he looked me in the eye, and I knew what he wanted at that point in time.
I've heard of this happening a lot.
It was that moment. It's one of those moments, and it was there, and I was like, how far do I want to go down this hole?
Yeah.
Because I know that I owe this guy a lot because this guy set me up. He opened all the doors. And I was thinking, well, do I let him do this thing or not? Do I do this thing or not?
Yeah.
And I was there summing it up, thinking about it. And at the end, it was like, you know what? It's not worth it. It's not worth it. So I just told him, hey, get your hands off.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, don't come near me again.
Yeah.
And we finished it there and then, and I never saw him again.
Wow.
And I knew at the same time, I was also closing the door to modeling as well. Because at that time, I was modeling and I was doing stuff, but I wasn't making a great deal of money. I was doing some great jobs and getting some great money. But when you average it all out, it was and it was still shallow. Very hit and miss.
And you felt shallow.
And I saw it for what it was.
Yeah.
And I met girls and I saw guys and I knew what was the casting count. I knew what was going on. So to me, it was like, do I really see myself doing this for any longer than what I'm doing it for now? And remember, I'm in that zone of like, I'm doing it. I grab every moment. I say yes to everything. I grab every opportunity I can. I turn anything negative into positive. I'm in that frame of like, I'm going. At that time, a guy called Marco, who was modeling as well, he had this other job called Imagine. Imagine is where, as a model, you go to these clubs in the middle of nowhere in Italy. They pay you, and you're there looking good.
You're kind of just the celebrity walking
That's
around.
right. And the club gets the cachet because you have models there. That attracts the locals. It all feeds off one another. So I went and did that with him. And as it turns out, I was making more money doing that than I was modeling because it's regular money 3 or 4 times a week. So I was already stepping out. I was also getting into acting by that time as well. So I was getting some acting jobs as well. So I was already moving away from modeling. And then what did it for me was that as Imaginaire, I would dance. And who taught me how to dance? Back in the children's home. A guy called Gary Lee, incredible dancer. I would mimic him, copy him. I loved the way he danced. And so I would dance around, 'cause I couldn't speak Italian at that time anyway. And he goes, man, you can dance. I said, yeah, I can dance, of course. And he goes, well, here in Italy, like, there's this, a professional podium dancer can earn incredible money. I was like, serious? He goes, yes. And then I remember, you know, he put me onto one guy who could set me up. And then he said, look, I want to see this guy. And like, because I did this big ad, in Italy, they're extremely good at selling things. You do one ad, they paint it to be like the best ad in the world.
Right.
So that's what I did. And so then I ended up becoming this podium dancer. So in the space of a year, I became the highest paid podium dancer in Italy, simply because I was in that mind. I was like, you know what? I'm going to do it. I'm going to go for it. I was kickboxing, boxing at that time, and so the body was looking cut and ripped. And I was like, you know what? Why not?
Yeah.
Why not? And it opened so many doors. You know, that's where I ended up working with, you know, some of the most famous football players in the world. One guy called Christian Vieri. You know, like, and I met again more doors. And I remember I'm in that mentality of just go, 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 go. You know, and I was beginning to meditate more now. You know,
so now you're becoming more mindful. You
more
weren't going on the rush of going. You were going on with a mindful set because of the moment when you were modeling, when you said no. Yeah. Have you ever think about just that moment of you saying no and you learn the boundary that you had for your own self?
Yeah.
That's a big thing that most people might have let that happen. So then it's like sliding doors, right? The movie Sliding Doors.
Big time.
Right? Boom, shut that one. It was fearful, but here's a new one. And now you're in Italy. Now you're the highest paid podium dancers. So we go from Italy, boom, you're in Bali.
Yeah.
Why are you in Bali? How did you go from all of this? We got a beautiful family now.
I know.
You've got you run your company, Life in Bali. You do amazing things here that we'll chat about on Stand Up Bali Night. Yeah. How did you get from there to here?
So Italy, I went from Italy back to UK, and then I went to travel the world. So prior to Italy, I went around the world for 2 years, and with a girlfriend. We finished studying, and I wound up in Australia, met some incredible people, modeled there as well. That's where I started. And then what happened was I got an offer. I was living in Milan at that time, working on the MTV Music Awards, Madonna in 1998. I got a phone call from a friend called Antonio Zambarelli, and he was like, Rob, I've got this club in Sydney. It's called Home. Well, we didn't have a name for it then. Because do you want to come back and do it? Why not? Hell yeah, let's do it. So I came back. And that was the first super club in the Southern Hemisphere. We spent 20 years running clubs in Sydney, one of which was voted number 3 in the world. That was Tank. So we dominated for 20 years in Australia and Sydney, the clubs and DJs and everything that spun around that. And then winding towards the end of that 20 years, the relationship with Antonio, even though we're always going to be married, like a married couple, we go through divorces every now and again, but we're always going to be married. But my other partner, who was my life partner, a girl called Isabella, we were together for 20-something years as well. That relationship was coming to an end. And that relationship was incredibly important because that really tapped into spiritual energies and everything else we'll get onto later. And as that came to an end, is where I was beginning to shed things. It was time for me again to metamorphosize and shed another layer. And then I met Marina around that time. And then Marina and I it's like a rebound, you know, like finish that one, go into this one, is this a rebound? And then we realized that, hey, I wanted kids, and she didn't want kids in the beginning, but said, you know, okay. And then we had kids very quickly. I got out of the nightclub scene, I moved into cafes, and then quickly 5 years went by, we went well with that one, but life in Sydney was becoming a little bit too difficult for 2 kids and us. And Marina from Indonesia, Jakarta, was like, well, why don't we go to Bali? I was in Bali 25 years prior for a month. I had an incredible time. I was like, Bali, why not? So then why not? So then we came in for a quick holiday, checked it out, and then in our true style of just doing shit quickly, 3 months later we moved to Bali, right? And we didn't know anybody. That first year in Bali, we had enough money, we were on holiday. I wrote the book on a mobile phone from the front seat of an Avanza. And then it was figuring out what is it that I want to do. So this time was a time to really take stock of all that had happened in the years prior. And I knew that was another time to shift internally, emotionally, spiritually, mentally, physically, all of that into a different vibration. And then being in Bali, as we know, has got this vibrational energy where it just throws stuff at you. And you either take it, accept it, move through it, or you run, right? And for some reason, I decided to accept it and stay and work through it, you know? And it allowed me to really go back to the children's home and realize that on a Sunday afternoon, we'd be playing football in the back garden with like 20, 30 kids and like another 40 people from the local community, like it's halfway house of all the rich kids who are dropouts, the criminals, the gangsters, the thugs, all of them all in their back garden playing football. I realized that I was always trying to get back there because in that environment was this understanding of there was no class. And in UK there's a class structure, but there was no class. It wasn't about color. It wasn't about money. It wasn't about religion or background. It was just about 50, 60 people playing football and having a laugh with just the things that make us human, you know, tripping over, scoring a goal, winning, losing, you know, fancying a girl, talking to a girl you like, having a chat with a guy, like these things that make us human. So all of the events and all of the past of bringing people together, which still dominates me now, it was literally trying to go back to that time.
To that time.
Because I love those times.
And that's what makes us really connected. So now you've got this family, you've got two gorgeous girls, and now you're running your company in Life in Bali, which is, you know, it's a coffee shop, it's a place for people to come and collect, and you are literally running Tamora Gallery. I mean, it's like, it's a fest where it looks like you brought the children's home there, right? Like, it's like you can see it. It's so active. I absolutely love that spot. My daughter loves it. But you're hosting on Monday nights, and this is what you had Hanalei speak there. And I think it's just very powerful. It's like your essence, your soul comes through this. It's called Stand Up.
SpeakuP Monday.
SpeakuP Mondays. Where you bring in others that get to tell their story and they can talk about what they've gone through and their experiences so they can really feel validated, right? I absolutely love what you do, Robert. This book, I'm so excited to read it more deeply, Soul Survivor. And I wanted to bring you here because I think, you know, not only for the world to see through our audience and what a sexy brand really is and that you can come from any space in your life, but it's how you see it and how you use it and the leverage that you have and the doors that you understand why that happened is because it's supposed to happen and it gets you to the next place.
Absolutely.
And I really think that that Bali deserves to know more Robert, like really what you were doing, the essence, because we see you as like, he's hustling, you got this, I got this, come visit. But man, for me, a sexy brand is a real story. It's like people do what they do in this world today because of what they've gone through. And that most are only seeing you as Robert, this smiley guy.
That's right.
Man, I don't think anyone knows about Gail or, you know, those the times that you went through and you know, the fight in the street.
And it's, you know, like, it's great because, you know, like, you know, we still go through our times, you know, we still go through our times. And, you know, like, you know, finding our way financially, emotionally, spiritually, and all the rest of that. But what I love about Bali is that, you know, there's this thing I call the 3 pillars of purpose. You know, the first, and I've been through all of them, none is better or worse. It's just a powerful place to stand, to own it, right? The first pillar is having no purpose, which is that second part of the book, where it's literally just running, gunning, every experience I grab and just embrace and find the positive and just keep going. No long distance plan, it's the moment, I'm loving it. The second pillar is about, you know, growing up in a children's home, having this awareness that I love community. I love building unity between people, unity, right? I love doing that. And why? Really because I'm going back to that Sunday afternoon in our kids' home, in the backyard, community, that's what it was. And that's what I've been trying to build because of that, trying to go back to that. The third pillar is really about inspiration, right? Not being pushed by anything, not being driven by anything, but just being present, being aware, something you see, something that comes to you and it drops in. And you go, you know what? I don't know why that thing affected me, but it did. And I'm available to do something about it, you know? So the things which are like that for me at the moment is like, we're working on this cultural center for Bali is one. I'm hanging out with a guy recently who just got an incredible insight, you know, which was education and the power of it, which I'd always been doing. Speak Up Monday is about education. It's about education through storytelling, through telling your story and sharing a story in a way that people grab insights from themselves. But what he did, he said, you know what, Rob? Like, if you see someone walking down the street and they throw some plastic on the floor, right? What created that thought in their mind to do that? When you come back to the source, it's education.
Always, yeah.
It's education. So if you can come back to the source of anything, then you can do something about it, right? And that just lit me up. I was like, geez. And I got another insight, onion layer, peeling, that's my mission, actually. It's about education, wrapped up in storytelling, wrapped up in, sharing insights and holding spaces for people to really explore their own soul, right? But that's really what it is. So the Cultural Center and this other education project we're working on at the moment, in its infant stages, there's a guy called Chamath, Facebook guy, and I've been listening to him a bit, incredible guy. But why did I bring him into it? Because it's working on difficult and complex problems.
Yeah.
But for the long period of time, and if you can do it, it's going to create an incredible worldview.
And I cannot agree with you more. I think people that are willing to take that time and to realize, because not all of us see that they're uneducated. Like the guy that throws stuff out the window doesn't realize it's because he's uneducated that what the outcome's going to be. So those of us that are like pillars, I see you as a beam of light of shining for others so that they can see on themselves. Robert, it's been so great. I know that there's probably so much more that we can talk about. You do incredible things here in Bali. Where can everyone find you most days?
Yeah, right. So Life in Bali is our spot, which we're in the middle of doing a pivot. But the role I have, we have this collaborative consultancy role tomorrow. So I'm the GM, like a general manager role with Tomorrow Gallery and Square. So you always find me around Tomorrow Gallery, Tomorrow Square at the moment. For a while it will be that way. Life in Bali, we're obviously there too. And there's a little project we're working on at the moment for Life in Bali that's moving just across the road.
All right, we'll keep looking for you. And I want people to be able to find your book. How can they find Soul Survivor?
Yeah, so my website, robertianbonnick.com, has got all the links. It keeps you updated on what I'm doing and what I'm up to. Not quite as updated as you are, because I haven't included that stuff on there yet. But yeah, so robertianbonnick.com, you'll find me there. Just look out for Life in Bali, life with a Y. So life,
L-Y-F-E. We'll make sure that we have everything on our show notes, and because it's also going to be a podcast, it's also going to be broadcasted, all over. I just think that you're an amazing human being, and I want to thank you for being here, Robert, and for sharing your story.
Thank you so much. And look, last thing I want to say, just to keep you updated. So we've got an event which I founded called the Brow Food and Wine Festival, which is an incredible event, 4,000 people in one day. We're doing that again. That one's coming up soon, so I'll let you all know about that. But please come. It'll be over 3 days this time. It's a unity event wrapped up in a food and wine festival.
Well, when they find Life in Bali, they can find all these events that pop up. Awesome. Wow. That's what I call a sexy brand. Guys, think about it. If you're going through life and you're wondering if you can, really make it through because life keeps hitting you hard, say, thank you, life, for hitting me hard. I get to overcome this scenario in my life, and then you get to be who you truly want to be. That is a sexy brand. So again, thanks for being here, everyone. I'm going to leave you with one thing. If you're going to create a brand, create a sexy brand. If you're going to be anything, be unstoppable. We'll see you on the next show. Brand awareness is key in today's modern digital era. And with the rapid growth of social media platforms and the simplicity for all brands to compete on the same playing field, business owners have to start getting creative with how their brand message reaches their clients and customers. Hi, I'm Rhonda Swan, the CEO and founder of the Unstoppable Branding Agency and the Sexy Brand Building Formula programs, where we help our clients create a sexy brand through strategic brand marketing, image, and film. I believe every small business owner deserves to stand out in a sea of marketing messages and make their competition irrelevant with the right brand image, brand message, and strategy. If your brand and marketing is well thought out, but design and images look terrible, no one will take your business seriously. If your design is beautiful, but your marketing message isn't planned out so strategically, it will fall flat on its face. That's where our team comes in. We help our clients restructure their brand image with photo shoots and create a winning combination of strategic brand building through impeccable design and great storytelling through film. The world of business has changed. Because of social media, customers and clients are looking for transparency and connection. A business owner can no longer hide behind a website or rely on their services to attract the perfect client. They want realness, and they want to see the truth behind the brand. As you can tell, we do things differently. And if that excites you, I want to invite you to book a consultation or join us at our upcoming VIP branding retreat and let us help you turn your brand into a sexy, profit-making machine.